Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rachel Kangas, and I work for the Florida Public Archaeology Network in our Southwest region. And today I am super excited because we have our very first guest. If you have been following along, you might have noticed that I have done 16 weeks of weekly live videos. So I'm really excited to have someone here have a different face for you, a different voice for you, a different perspective for you. So I'm really excited to have our first guest. They are a historical archaeologist who works with the Tribal Historic Preservation Office, or THPO. So if we say THPO, we're talking about the Tribal Historic Preservation Office. And they work for the Seminole Tribe of Florida. So today they're going to talk about what tribal archaeology is and why it's important. And I'm really excited to have this perspective represented here on our Facebook page. So I'm really excited as we go along. If you have any comments or questions or anything like that, feel free to put those in the comment section. And at the end, I'll come back up and we can go through any comments or questions that anybody has. So with that, without further ado, I will let my guests introduce themselves. So take it away.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Rachel. That was enthusiastic. It's great to be here, and especially in this time, it's great to be able to get out, talk to people again in any way. My name is Dave Scheidecker, and I am a historical archaeologist with the Seminole Tribe of Florida Tribal Historical Preservation Office, as Rachel said, here to talk about tribal archaeology, which is what our office is all about in general. So just to give a bit of a background as to why I'm talking about this, my name is Dave Scheidecker. I am an archaeologist. I've worked in the field for about 6 years. I have my master's in anthropology, specializing in historic archaeology for Texas Tech University, guns up. And my undergrad, I have a bachelor's in history and anthropology from Florida Atlantic University. I've been working for the Seminole Tribe of Florida now for 5 years. I started as an archaeologist, moved up to become the research coordinator for the tribe, which was my current position, which lets me do outreach stuff like this. But the picture you'll see there is taken from my archaeology days with the tribe. And yes, I am standing in the canal because that's the kind of fun stuff we get to do. Before I worked for the tribe, I've also worked in other areas in Florida, Texas, Ecuador, and Zimbabwe. So got a bit of experience, but most of my time has been with the Seminole Tribe of Florida. I am not a tribal member. Before anyone wonders about that, part of the reason I'm talking about this is my job. I was hired by the tribe to do this. They have specifically hired me to come out, talk about these sort of things, do outreach programs, but I am not a tribal member. I just do my best to represent them and what they would like me to do. To be honest, it's a dream job. So moving along, as Rachel said, I work for the Tribal Historic Preservation Office. If people don't know what that is, we normally shorten it to THPO, but it's an office that was created by the National Historic Preservation Act. It works in the same way as a state historic preservation officer, which is a state level. Every state has one. And they oversee archaeology and preservation efforts in the entire state. Now, U.S. Constitution recognizes sovereign tribes as a separate entity. How that is all done often goes back and forth, but this created a specific tribal post that is equivalent in level with the Tribal Historic Preservation Officer, or with the State Historic Preservation Officer, which is the Tribal Historic Preservation Officer. Most tribes, federally recognized tribes, will have a THPO, which is a person. We are lucky enough at Seminole Tribe of Florida to have an entire office, which I fall under. I am not the THPO. We still have a THPO who's a person who runs the THPO that is an office. And the THPO as a person is Dr. Paul Backhouse, who has been with the tribe for, I believe, over 10 years at this point, and has helped elevate our THPO to just incredible standards. This is a picture also from the back of our offices. I just like it because it's the blending of our modern office with the Seminole Chickie in the background there, or in the foreground there. So we oversee all archaeology done on the reservation land. So by definition, it becomes tribal archaeology. But what really separates tribal archaeology from everything else is it takes into account the tribe itself. It works with the tribe. We have input from the tribe. We have tribal beliefs, customs prioritized, and what the tribe wants is what we work on specifically. Now, what this falls under is tribal input. Everything we do, whenever we can, we're talking with tribal members to get their background and understanding of things. Tribal traditions are respected at all times, including medicine, which is done on any artifacts that are brought in. The the history of the tribe is always taken into account. We talk to tribal members who know the area or whose parents, grandparents, elders knew the area. So we can always get that kind of tribal input going into everything we do. We have to have an understanding of the tribe's history. And this is important because the history that is often taught in schools is not always the actual history of the tribe. It's what people outside know, but you talk to tribal members and they'll tell you all sorts of things are wrong. For the Seminole Tribe of Florida, this is incredibly important because I learned in school that the Seminole were newcomers to Florida. I learned that they came around the 1800s, that they were all Creek who came down. And this is a story that's passed down through most schools. The Seminole tribe will tell you they have been here since Florida began. There were people who came down at that time, but they joined the people who were already here, who survived the earlier periods, who survived the Spanish times, who have always been in Florida. And their traditions, including people like the Kulusa, the Tocobaga and such, are still part of the tribe to this day. We do policy that's based on tribal priorities and beliefs. This means that the tribe tells us something is important, then it's important regardless of what any other regulation says. One of the times this comes in most is when dealing with human remains. You may have heard often that in regular archaeology work, if someone finds human remains that could be older, that could be archaeological, there's a big investigation, everything stops, people come in. And that is the way it's supposed to be done. That falls under Native American Graves Repatriation Act, NAGPRA, which I might talk a little bit about later also. Any Native American graves have to be respected, and we are the ones who are supposed to consult if there's any chance that the people found are ancestral for the Seminole Tribe of Florida, which basically means anyone in Florida, lower Alabama and Georgia, any of those have to consult with us. But on reservation, the work that we do is different in that if we find remains and they're ancestral, we stop. Everything is stopped. That project is done. That is now sacred ground. We know what that is, and there's no investigation, there's no going into things because the tribe would really prefer that their ancestors are not bothered, to put it mildly. And that's among other things. Everything we do takes into account the tribal perspective. Now, so what do we actually do? And this is one of our archaeologists, Sean, with a horse asking this very question, apparently while he's in the field. We do a number of things in our work, and the first main thing we do is all on-reservation archaeology is done by the TIPO archaeologists. And this is just an example of some stuff we've done. This is on the Big Cypress Reservation and on the Brighton Reservation. And a lot of times when people ask me about this, they picture we're going into the swamps, we're going into these Everglades, we're going into these wetland areas, and a lot of times we are. I mentioned some of the places I've worked before, including Zimbabwe and Ecuador. And I can tell you, and I tell interns that come in or new people who work with us, if you could do this job, if you can go out there and do archaeology in this environment, you can go anywhere because this is the roughest environment I've ever worked on. Just a combination of the heat, the humidity, the mosquitoes, everything. It's not that every day is like that, but there are enough of them that it takes something to keep doing this, especially when you're out there just, as we see Brandy Norton, one of our other archaeologists here, brushing through things and going through a site. Out there all day in Florida, sometimes in the summer heat. But we do work anywhere on reservation. That includes Hollywood. If people see this is the Hollywood guitar. This is quickly becoming a major landmark in the area. And our team, including me, dug holes for this entire site throughout and around the Hard Rock Casino. We didn't even know what the major work was going to be. We just found out that there was this major work was going to be done. We had to come through, excavate the entire area, which included the parking lots, which were being taken up. And we got to dig underneath the parking lot as they brought up sections for us, which was great because they had some of the construction workers just watching us with this look of like, what the heck are you doing? And if anyone's curious about what you might find underneath a parking lot, we found another parking lot. The casino was built in the same area as a Rodeo had been in the 1950s. So we found the parking lot from the 1950s underneath the parking lot, which is, it's an interesting discovery. That's not one way to put it, I guess. And this is one of my favorite pictures I've ever taken. This is like 4 weeks in working for a tribe. I got sent down and me and a friend who's no longer there, Crystal Geiger, were digging this. And I just had to take a picture because we were right off of 441, which if you don't know, Florida is a major road. Tom Petty has a song about it. And traffic going by us the entire time, just digging a hole right here. So the job has taken us all around, and it's been a lot of fun. Now, the on-reservation archaeology is not the only thing that we do. Part of my job as research coordinator is I maintain the Seminole Site File and Tribal Register of Historic Places. The Seminole Site File is a list of all the sites that we find on reservation land and off it if we're doing work there, which sometimes happens. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But the Tribal Register of Historic Places is similar to the National Register of Historic Places. It is a list of important historic sites that the tribe considers to be significant and to need additional protection, and just to keep their memories alive and the importance going. So this is a map I actually got to make of the 3 different reservations where we have sites that are on the Tribal Register of Historic Places, just to put it up in TIPO office and have this awareness of all these historical sites that are scattered around. Now, as part of this, also, we get to do maintenance of historic tribal sites. These are the 2 sites that are on Tribal Register of Historic Places, which are also on the National Register of Historic Places. On the left is the Council Oak, which is just a hugely significant site for the tribe. It is where it's part of the modern history of the tribe, which surprises a lot of people, but it is where the people who formed the Constitutional Committee in the 1950s to draw up the modern framework and governmental files for the Seminole Tribe of Florida met. They did this under here because it was close to the BIA office, and this is basically where the Constitution of the tribe was written. 1957 is when the Seminole Tribe became a full federally recognized tribe. They've always been a full tribe, but that's the first time that they had the paperwork for the government to actually pay proper attention. The site is significant, it's beautiful, and it's also still significant, and inaugurations for tribal council positions are still held there to this day. I did not expect, as an archaeologist and a historian, to be taking care of a historic oak tree, but that is now part of my duties, and I get to make sure it's kept clean and healthy. On the other side of the screen, though, you'll find the red barn, which you might look at and go, yes, that's a red barn. But this is a very important site for the tribe. This is on the Brighton Reservation, and it's basically where the modern Seminole cattle industry was built up from the ground. And cattle are an incredibly significant thing to the Seminole Tribe of Florida. They've been in the cattle business since cattle were in Florida, which goes back to the 1500s. In the late 1700s, they were supplying the majority of beef to the Spanish colonists, not just in Florida, but around the Caribbean. So they were in the cattle business long before America came to Florida. This was a modernization of that, and there's still Seminole cattle meetings that are held there. It's a wonderful site to maintain the history of, but it required complete rebuilding a few years ago after Irma, I believe. And our architectural historian is the one who manages this one. Now, one of the other big things we get to do is, and honestly, my favorite part of the job is research and discovery. And there's several things that this falls under, things that are important to the tribe that we need to find out about, and bringing some up here. One of the most fun ones is Fort Shackelford. Fort Shackelford was a Seminole war fort from 1855. I could go into the full story of it, but we don't have that kind of time, because I could talk about it for like an hour at least. But it was lost for a really long time. We were trying to figure out where it was, and we managed to find it. These are posts from the wood barricade wall that stood around the fort. The fort was burned down by the tribe. And we found these, we found the burn damage on them and the ash around them. So archaeologically speaking, this was just one of our great discoveries. And it was found in a tribal member's cattle range. Now, on the scientific end of things, we've gotten to do some other archaeology work, which involves tree islands. There's a study involving tree islands, how they formed. And for people who don't know, those are the hammocks in Florida, the groups of trees that stick out from the Everglades. Before the draining of Florida, they were the places that were dry year round. There's questions about how they formed. And we were trying to dig underneath the bedrock of the tree islands to find out if there was evidence of human habitation below, which is why in this case, you actually get to see me using a jackhammer in a swamp, which is a phrase I never thought I would be able to say. One of our biggest projects also is Egmont Key, which is up in St. Petersburg. It's an island off the coast of St. Petersburg that the US Army turned into a prison camp to hold Seminole during the 1850s, during the last stage of the Seminole War. They held prisoners there before they took them to New Orleans, and then to Oklahoma. So this was a prison camp. This is a significant site. It's not a happy history, but that's one of the reasons we want to make sure that it's preserved and known, because to make sure these kind of things don't happen again. This is another site that I can and have talked about and given like hour-long presentations on, so I'll cut myself short before I go into that. But up there, the photo from the very beginning I use here, this is a canoe that washed up on Egmont Key. And we didn't know where this came from. It was found by Tom Watson, who's a ranger who lives on Egmont Key. It is a traditional canoe. Pedro Zepeda there, who you can see on the right in the red shirt, is a Seminole canoe maker. He came with us, analyzed it, and he said he thinks it's the older style, the traditional type that was used in open waters, which would place it going back to the 1500s. We were able to get preservation on it going. We've had carbon dating done on it, and it comes from, according to carbon dating, the 14th century. So this is an amazing find that we've been able to work on. It's now going through preservation efforts because it's been saltwater for so long, it's in great danger. Now, another thing we do as part of our work is education and outreach. This is Sean and Sam here at Port Charlotte during one of the archaeology festivals. We went up there to talk about everything that we were doing. But we do a lot of education outreach. I talked about Egmont Key. I talked about how I can talk about it forever, but I don't have to because we actually did a book on it. We're going to have a link to that also underneath if anyone wants to take a look at it. It's not a traditional archaeology report. We tried to do something like a National Geographic special to showcase the Seminole story here, the photography, the history, and some traditional Seminole art that's in there. Now, we've also worked with other groups that do history that involves the Seminole. This is Fort King up in Ocala, which was the main outpost of the U.S. Army during the Second Seminole War. And we've worked with the people at Fort King. We got to go up and do some archaeology there, but we've also worked with them for their historic information to make sure that their information on the tribe and the tribal perspective on the war is what the tribe actually says. And that's great. They've invited us to do this. And this is the type of relationship we really try to foster so that people will come to us and we can talk to people and just have this ongoing talk, because there's so much misinformation out there and we want to try to help correct this. As part of it also, I mentioned the Travel Register of Historic Places. This is a sign that we got to put up on the Sam Jones Trail, which is, if anyone's going down along I-75, Snake Road cuts north through the Miccosukee Reservation, then up to the Seminole Reservation where it becomes Josie Billy. And then north of there it becomes Sam Jones Trail. This is actually a line that Sam Jones, who's a father of the tribe, followed to lead them into the Everglades to basically survive the Seminole Wars. And we were able to put up this sign along the road commemorating it. We've got a couple of these on reservations, but this is the first one that I was able to be put off reservation to mark a historic site for us. We also have worked with this exhibit. People might recognize it. This is from Epcot. This is in the American Pavilion in Epcot. Finally added a section on Native Americans, but I won't talk about how long that took. But tribal members went up. We brought actual patchwork, actual Seminole crafts, and they're on display up there at Epcot for people to go and see. So people from all over the world are coming in to see the traditions, crafts of people who have been here for thousands of years. And one of our most important recent sites, and unfortunately this was with the pandemic that hit, with everything happening, we were gaining momentum on this, and things exploded in the world, but we have been trying to work to get Seminole ancestors repatriated that are held in museum collections across the country under NAGPRA, the Native American Race Repatriation Act, or Protection Act. Museums have remains, and in this case, the Smithsonian National History Museum has remains of ancestors that are in their collection that they do not acknowledge as Seminole, but the tribe will tell you are ancestors of the Seminole people. We've been working to get this information out there. This is Tina Osceola, who's a tribal member, who's led this campaign called No More Stolen Ancestors. And we've been trying to raise awareness of this, get this out there. And if you want to talk about it all, hashtag No More Stolen Ancestors is for both Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, anywhere. But this is kind of outreach that we try to do that goes beyond education, that goes towards trying to bring the ancestors back to the tribe. And I feel like that was a really quick overview and kind of a sudden stop, but that is the general overview of the sort of things we do. And I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you, Rachel, for letting me on here. And I just knocked the desk around. And if anyone has any questions, I will be happy to answer them.
Oh, that was awesome, Dave. Thank you so much. So we do have some questions that came in. Let me pull those up. So one question we got on one of our previous posts was, is there any work happening in the Florida Keys?
There's archaeology work happening in the Keys regularly. We don't have anything that we're directly doing there at the moment. There's attention there, and we know there's history that's known there, but we don't have anything going on there specifically at the moment.
Okay, excellent. Let's see. So showing me my comments all jumbled, so give me just a second to get them unjumbled. I'll try and give you an accurate representation of the comments that came in throughout the presentation.
That's never dangerous on the internet.
Okay.
Well, that's like, so great thing about doing a live stream. I just got the battery is running low message, so I'm going to run and grab my battery pack.
Okay, you do that, and I will talk a little bit. So I see some excellent comments and questions that are coming in. So if anybody has, ooh, hello. If anybody has any comments or questions for Dave about tribal archaeology with the Seminole Tribe of Florida, let us know, and I will go through all of those. And as he grabs his cord, I really love the jackhammer in the swamp. That was one of my highlights from the talk.
That was a super moment. That's all I can say.
So we've got, they're still not showing up in order, but let's see. We've got Sam Wade is on. Says hi.
Oh,
Hi, Sam. Hi, Sam. Sam asks, how can people spread the word about #NoMoreStolenAncestors?
Well, we've got, and I'll email this to you at FPAN. We have an awareness campaign that was started. There's a PDF that has all the information on that.
Awesome.
And just check Instagram, Twitter, anywhere for #NoMoreStolenAncestors. Feel free to repost, share, say anything on that. And with the Seminole Tribe of Florida. Whoop.
There we go. All right. Sorry. I'm trying to find my comments and I pulled up the whole video. All right. Okay, so you can send me that PDF, and can I post the PDF in the comments on this video? Yes. Excellent. Yes. So I'll do that. Pedro Zapata said that's a nice canoe. It surely is.
You would know.
Sarah asks, what are some good resources like books or other places I could check out to learn more about tribal archaeology or Seminole history? And we have one link from Pedro to the Seminole Tribe's website, which is fantastic. And if you have any others to add, that would be fantastic, Dave.
Looking over at my shelf right now, trying to think of what are the best ones to put in. I'm mainly been going on the history, sort of history craze lately for a major project that we're doing. There's good works on the 1700s. There's, let me get up and just grab some of these.
Go for it. And I know I have We Come for Good right here on my shelf. So this is a great one to learn about the TIPO office and the Seminole Tribe. So that's one, and I can go through and put links to these in the comments. So if anybody's interested in purchasing some of these books and looking into these resources, we can do that.
Grabbing some of the ones I have here. And so to get into the history, there's not as much written specifically on the Seminole Tribe, but there is some stuff out there. Look for anything with Patsy West, Jerry Milanich. Jerry Milanich will be great for looking at the archaeology of the area. The works are a little bit older, but still, it's like he's the guy for Florida archaeology. Florida Indians and the Invasion from Europe would be one of the main ones to look at from him. Got John Hamm, Native American World Beyond Appalachia. Charles Hudson, a bit older, the Southeastern Indians. Now, unfortunately, some of these ones I say are a bit older. Like I said at the beginning, there's history that doesn't match up with what the Seminole will tell you, and that's what's in there. So, but we're really just trying to get that out. So that's one of the things. We're working with a lot of academics, and one of the best ones about that, I would say, is Alejandro Dukovsky. whose book Informed Power is an excellent choice. She's specifically looking at communication networks that were used in the Southeast between Native American groups. And she is an expert at going through Spanish documents and piecing together the native side of the story as best as can be. Finding ways in which the native tribes were actually the ones who were politically manipulating and using the Spanish. The traditional narrative will always be that the Spanish came here and were dominating everyone, but there was a lot of politicking that was going on and people actually doing good work to utilize the Spanish and profit off them and all the things that people do.
Excellent.
To be a little meaner on that one, though, there's also The Other Slavery by Dr. Andre Resendez, which is about a story that a lot of people don't know, which is the enslavement of Native Americans that was done in the US, primarily by the Spanish, but other groups as well, before the African slave trade kicked in as strong as it did. There was major slave trade in Native Americans that still went on through the 1700s.
Okay, excellent. Those are awesome. Thank you for all of those recommendations. Like I said, I'll go back through the video after and post some links to some of those books that you mentioned. So fantastic. We have a hi from University Press of Florida. Hello, University Press of Florida.
Well, I've read a lot of your books.
Michelin asks, are there any good rodeo artifacts? I think this is a comment from when you were talking about the rodeo parking lot that you dug up.
I wouldn't say we found any good rodeo artifacts during that, but we did have one of the interesting things we've had. People will come to us with artifacts that they found and ask if is this Seminole, is this one not? But we had one that was brought to us, which was an old set of stirrups, like saddle stirrups, that was brought to us by I'm trying to remember, I don't want to get this wrong, I believe she was Muskogee Creek, but married a member of Seminole Tribe of Florida, and lived on the Brighton Reservation in the 70s. And a few years back, she brought us these stirrups that she had found back in the 70s and wanted to know about them. And we were trying to place them, and they turned out to be about mid 1800s, the sort of thing that was worn not by a rodeo, but by American cavalry when they would have been coming through the area. So that actually proved to be a really awesome find.
That is super cool. We got another question about the rodeo. Was the rodeo / 50s parking lot operated by the tribe?
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes, it was.
Ellen Schultz Bachelor, I believe, says A Star is Born. Great job, Dave. So where can we find more information on traditional Seminole crafts and textiles?
There, I would recommend our museum website, the Adatiki Museum. Adatiki is a Miccosukee word that, if I remember right, means a place for learning. And it's the name of our museum. We'll have a link there for you. And the museum right now is it's closed. It's going to be closed, unfortunately, for a while due to COVID and everything that's happening. But we've set up an online tour that people can go to the website and do the online tour of the museum, get to see it. We have a listing of all our collections there, and we've had researchers who work there who went fantastically into Seminole crafts.
Excellent. Okay, I believe that is the last question that I see. Let me look. Oh no, hold on. There are more. Sorry, folks. All right. Do you know many Seminole archaeologists?
If you mean tribal members who are archaeologists, I know one, and I believe that means I know all of them. One of the problems, honestly, in the archaeology field is, again, talking about you're looking at me, and I'm doing this. The archaeology field is very white, and there needs to be more voices into it. So I actively encourage anyone who's interested, go into the field, join that, because also people from these tribes that have always been the source, that have always been studied by outsiders, having them on the inside is fantastic. But also, I know Jack Chalfont, who is, as far as I know, the only Seminole tribal archaeologist. And I've worked with him at the TIPO.
Fantastic, thank you. We have a question from Paula. Are you okay with non-human artifacts such as tools or pottery sherds being collected for educational purposes?
It depends on by who. We're talking about like us, the tribal archaeologists, we do collect them, and anything like that is brought in. Because it was in the ground, it needs to have medicine done to it by somebody from the tribe who knows the proper medicine to do before it can be brought inside to be studied and analyzed. But we have collected ones that are used for educational purposes. For people outside the TIPO, we would like to be consulted when people find things. Not everybody is going to know exactly what the purpose of something was, and especially human remains, as I said before, that is something that the tribe would just prefer nobody bring up. But for non-human remains, the tribe would like to know about it and be consulted. And like amateurs, people who are not professional archaeologists bringing it up, is that sort of thing is problematic in a lot of areas. I don't know if you've talked about that situation before, but that's a kind of a large topic.
Yeah, absolutely. Excellent. Thank you. We have a question from Jeff. Beyond excellent opportunities like this, how can FPAN continue to assist TIPO in sharing and promoting tribal history?
Well, I'm providing some of the links right now. We're working on more projects, and we've been overwhelmed, as I think everybody has lately, with the pandemic and the response to that. We're getting things normalized, or we're getting to the new normal right now that we can start getting back into outreach things, which allows me to be here for one thing. But sharing things out like the Egmont Key book is major. We're working with Florida Gulf Coast University and the 3D lab there with Dr. Laura, I want to say Harrison, I'm worried I just said her name wrong. She has up the 3D lab there, and we're doing actually a 3D scanning of Egmont Key that we were going to try to make interactive so people can go online and visit, because there's a lot of elders who want to go who couldn't, and this is a way to raise the awareness. And hopefully we're going to be continuing those efforts, getting outreach out, and we're going to be reaching out to FPAN whenever we do to try to help get that word out.
That's fantastic. Awesome. I can't wait for that. That sounds really amazing. I am very excited. And like I said, we've posted the Egmont Key book that the Seminole Tribe has put out in the comments. And yeah, when that scan comes out, we will absolutely be happy to share that widely. Do you have time for a couple more questions?
Yeah.
Awesome. So Michelin asked, the canoe was wider than what was shown, right? Were there trees wide enough to hold adults, or did they have to put several trees together?
So that canoe was much wider than was shown. Actually, that was about a quarter of the width of it there. I don't think I had a picture of the full thing on there, but the section we had was 18 feet long. And that's not the full length. It was broken up possibly halfway through. We don't know how long. These were large, basically open waters to go into the Gulf, to go, there was trade going between Caribbean areas that people use this to go between. So this was large, and yes, there used to be these trees, the cypress trees got huge to the point where you couldn't put your arms around them. And most of those unfortunately are gone, and that's a product of logging, timber industry, drainage, just a lot of the environmental changes that have been done to Florida in that time.
Yeah, that's so cool. What a great question. Thank you. I had no idea it was going to go into all those great places. Albert Gonzalez asks, how often are the 19th century camps encountered on survey or excavated by the tribe?
We're probably not told about them when they are found as often as we'd like, so it's hard to say. The 19th century camps, those ones are at least better known because the early 19th century is almost completely subsumed by the Seminole War. People were moving around in that time, pushed south. There's a lot of knowledge from them from that time that was lost. And unfortunately, South Florida is one of the worst preservation areas. So there's a lot working against us. So whenever we can get anything, we try to. I wish I could actually give like a number or something definitive, but we don't get to hear. A lot of them have been found or mapped out, a lot of the bigger ones. The ones from the later 20th century, when the tribe was keeping to the Everglades, was only like dealing with very specific people from the outside. A lot of those tribal members know where some of those are. There's a lot of them that aren't known for a tribe, and those are often in areas that aren't as heavily found. But as you get more more people coming into the Everglades area, more development being done, found more and more often. A lot of them were disrupted by things like the Tamiami Trail and I-75. So a lot of them are still waiting to be found. Some of them were disrupted. Disrupted is such a nice way to put it. Disrupted when Fort Lauderdale and just South Florida in general came up, because there were spots where people were along that area. Some of those are preserved. Snake Warrior Island and Treetops Parks are two great examples of that you can visit in the South Florida area, the Fort Lauderdale area. I live in Broward County, so those are the ones I know best. But archaeologically speaking, and pretty much anytime you go out there, if you're disrupting a tree island of any decent size, there was probably a camp there at some point.
Awesome. Great, thank you.
Long rambling answer to say I'm not sure.
That's perfect, I love it. Rachel Welton asks, is there anything you wish archaeologists, scholarly or CRM, who don't do tribal archaeology knew about doing tribal archaeology or tribal historic preservation? So is there anything you wish that non-tribal archaeologists knew about tribal archaeology?
Yeah, the main thing I would say there is the importance of talking to tribes, talking to the tribal people, getting their views on the history, the culture, because they know a lot more than people expect. People think it's been this longstanding view that the academics are the ones that know everything, and if the academics say one thing, the tribe says another. The academics are the ones who are right, and that's a really privileged view. That's not correct. So really take the time to talk to people. I found a lot of archaeologists, and I would put myself in this category before I came to work for a tribe, are scared to talk to tribal members, because our profession has gotten a really bad rep in tribal communities, and that's because we really earned it. Not like the people working now, hopefully, but especially the early 20th century, the mid 20th century, it was bad, and there's a lot of distrust that formed in that time. So one of the best things you can do is rebuild that trust and rebuild that communication.
That's excellent, thank you. Megan asked, do you have a favorite find or site that has really stood out to you, or is that classified?
So we actually do have sites that are classified, but my favorite ones are ones actually shared in this, and that would be Fort Shackelford and Egmont Key. Fort Shackelford, just because finding an actual fort, when we laid out, I was asked by Maureen Mahoney, the tribal archaeologist, what would be the best case scenario that you could find if out there, like what would be the absolute best case? And I said, if we found a row of posts with the ash still around them, that would be perfect. And then we found it. And I wasn't even there when it was found. I was really sad about that. When we were doing a field school for the tribal, for the sixth graders in the tribe, they were going out there, they were seeing the site, and they're the ones, like, as they were being shown it, that's when it was found. I was chosen to be at the school for the kids who weren't allowed to go or couldn't go, to be given a presentation there. I get a call as I'm doing this to say, we found it, and it was Sean, and I was just like, you have to be kidding me. Egmont Key is probably the second one. Well, Egmont Key is also major there because, one, it's been like a major focus of my life for about 4 years. I put a lot into that project, but it's a fantastic place that has such it's a dark story, but again, that's the reason I feel it needs to be told. These are the kind of things that need to be remembered. And it's just this incredible story that I've had the honor of being able to help tell.
Excellent. And again, check out the Egmont Key PDF that we linked to in the comments here. Megan said, great job, Dave. Justin asked, as a non-native, they said, this is a comment. As a non-native, Dave is very respectful of who he works for and is a great ally.
I think I know who that was. Thanks, Justin.
Yeah. Phyllis asks, do you represent the Miccosukee also?
No, that's a really good question. No. The Miccosukee Seminole split is very real. It's a political split. They are two separate tribes. They come from the same community, the same group of people, but there's The story between that one is long and complicated and interesting, but no, that is something we always make clear. We do not speak for the Miccosukee. We cannot speak for or represent the Miccosukee tribe in any way. That is wholly separate.
Excellent. Thank you for that insight. So that looks like we got quite a few other thanks and great jobs. So I will let you peruse those at your leisure. But that is the last question that I see. So with that, I think we can go ahead and end it. And Dave, thank you so much for coming on, for sharing the tribal archaeology perspective, for adding that to the lives that I've been doing. I really appreciate that, and that's something that I'm really glad that we can have and offer here on our social media for everybody to hopefully learn more from and get a perspective that that I think not a lot of people have enough of. So I really appreciate you coming on. Thank you.
Thank you for letting me come on and do this, and thanks everyone for watching and tuning in.
All right, so with that, I will hit stop. So have a good week, everyone. I'll be right back here next Thursday at 3 p.m. with another live video.